12, 13, 14. Hello everyone. We'll just allow a few minutes for everyone to settle. Just check if everything is working. All the panelists and moderator chairperson are all present and ready to go, but we'll give a few more minutes for everyone to settle.
Will this be recorded, Vijay?
Yes. It will be. Is that?
Request Ganeshan to put it in the auto record mode.
Recording, sir. It's already recording.
Yeah. Okay.
Sir, it's already on record mode.
Thank you for the confirmation, sir.
It's record mode.
I'm just looking at the numbers. It's 77 now.
No,
80
83.
83 would be including the panelist. 78. So we'll allow people to join and settle.
Dr. Vijay, I think we should be good to go.
People are just joining in now. A few more are joining in. 81. We are at 81 because just the broadcast has just been given, and people are trying to log in. I think because I can see the numbers moving still. So 10 past 10. I think we'll start. Is that okay, everyone?
Yeah.
So 3 more minutes. 84. $84, $85. 3 more minutes. Two more minutes. $90.
Dr. Vijay, should we start?
Yeah. Once again.
Good morning, Vijay.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good
Welcome,
morning.
Dr.
Jagdish,
Jagdish.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Dr. Jagdish, sir, this is the first public program. Do you want to take over and start, sir? Give introduction why we are doing this.
Yes, sir. Dr. Srikala Bharat herself will give the thing. Or Mahesh, let him start.
Vijay will begin, sir. You could pitch in between, sir.
Yeah. Mahesh, start. Okay.
Okay. Okay. We're going to make a start now. Good morning, everyone. It's a nice Sunday morning, pleasant morning in Bangalore, of course, and I don't know how it's in your place. I welcome you all for this webinar. This is specifically for people who are attending this competitive exam, NEET, CET, or the IIT JEE, who have been preparing for nearly 12 to 14 months, and with this lockdown, they are facing some difficulties. So I have had my own patients. Just to give an introduction, my name is Dr. Vijay Harbishatra. I'm one of the psychiatrists in Bangalore. So I had my own patients coming and telling me that they have difficulty coping with this lockdown, uncertainty and everything. So, they put a lot of effort and they don't know where it's going and how to go about. So we thought we will do this program. And so for this, we discussed myself, Dr. Jagdish and Dr. Mahesh, we discussed about this. And Mr. Ganeshan from Microlabs is a sponsor and the host today. I welcome all of you, sir. So we decided to have a panelist, and we chose one of the senior psychiatrists, Dr. Srikala Bharat. uh, and, and also a teacher and a coach himself who runs a coaching center. So we will know what difficulties you all are facing, and we'll know what are the advice they can give. And hopefully, with this, at the end of this session, you'll all be reassured by their, kind advices and take-home messages, which will help you to cope with the problems. So let me introduce one of the senior psychiatrists who is famous in Karnataka, and as well as she's a psychiatrist from Shimoga, Dr. Preeti Shanbag. Let me give you some advice, suggestions. What you can do is you have a question and answer icon where you can click on that and ask your questions. You ask your questions, please also mention your name at the end, and also mention your place, and also what you're aspiring to. Is it NEET or JEE or whatever, or both, or whatever? So it will help us to understand more, and if needed, so that we can do another program in future if it's going to help you all. So if Dr. Jagdish wants to have a word or anything, otherwise I can and you can pass on to Dr. Preeti Shanbag to start her session. So Dr. Jagdish, you want to say a few words, please?
Thanks, Dr. Vijay. A competitive exam is always a dream for many people, urban, rural, everyone. So they have their own dreams, what I can do for this country, and they will have their own vision, how in each department, what I can contribute. I think preparing for that and trying to exceed in that is extremely important. I guess people across India, irrespective of rural, urban, they will be benefited by Dr. Shrikala Bharat's the presentation today, because in this lockdown situation, they are not able to discuss, they are not able to attend classes. Probably they would have had some virtual classes. I guess this will help them to improve their concentration, be more focused, and do well in their exams. I wish all of them the best, and I request Dr. Shrikala Bharat, one of the senior most professors of NIMHANS, who is now working on this area, and I'm sure people will benefit from this webinar.
Over to you, Dr. Preeti. Mahesh, do you want to say something, Dr. Mahesh? Before.
No, I think you should go on.
Yeah, okay. Over to Dr. Preeti.
A very good morning to all of you. Welcome all the audience of this webinar program. Today we are having a webinar on staying positive for competitive exams amid the unprecedented COVID crisis. I think this is one of the most important things that we need to discuss during this time, because there are a lot of students not only preparing for their competitive exams, but also those who are waiting in line to write their class 10 and class 12 exams, and to think what to do regarding their future. Now, all these students are left in the lurch somewhere because they are not knowing when their exam dates are, nor are they able to concentrate on what they are doing, because there is no finish line anywhere in the vicinity. Hence, most students I know, or at least those who have come to our OPDs, are expressing some kind of concern, nervousness, loss of discipline, loss of the correct way of studying, and many more of these problems, which they do not know how to address or how to solve. So I think this is a very important program, and probably listening to professors as well as doctors who have been very much experienced in this field will hopefully solve most of your concerns today. Today we have two very, very eminent panelists with us. I'm honored to introduce Dr. Shrikala Bharat, a senior psychiatrist with 37 years of clinical experience, academic and research experience, who is one of our panelists today. She's a former professor of psychiatry and consultant at NIMHANS. She's a fellow of Royal College, United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand. She's also been involved in mental health promotion towards resilience and well-being with competence in secondary schools using life skill approach. The model developed in support of WHO Southeast Asian region in 2000 is an integrated and cost-effective one, which has already been applied across 260 schools in Karnataka. She also actively works with government and NGO setups pertaining to adults and youth, training teachers, counselors, NGO personnel, and volunteers. She's also running workshops, orientation, and sensitization forums towards this on a regular basis under the aegis of SMHE Foundation, which is a non-profit. She has the unique distinction of having trained 3,000 teachers and mental health professionals as life skill facilitators, which she rightly believes is an effective way to address the increasing stress of the globalized and urbanized world. Currently, she runs an NGO, Steps for Wellbeing, which works mainly in two areas: training life skill facilitators and helping youth move towards resilience. Ma'am, we are honored to have you as a panelist. We welcome you to this discussion.
Thank you, Preeti, and thank you,
Thank
all the organizers, mainly Dr. Mahesh Gowda, Dr. Jagdisha, and Mr. Ganeshan, for thinking about an important area, which I think, which is, considering that we have about 40% of our population in the youth population. I think it's a very, very important area that we need to talk about. Okay.
Yes.
I would rather, actually, I will do about 10 minutes. Just, I won't show the slides one by one. And to the students or whoever has logged in, whether it is a parent or a teacher or a student. But I think some of the important issues which people need to understand, I would definitely, sort of elaborate on it, and people can ask me questions. That would be much more effective rather than actually, my going into long things. So the way I looked at it is actually, how do you cope with the lockdown or the postponement of the examinations, which you said that there is no date. Okay. This is a stress. I think all of us definitely agree, whether it is a youth or a school going student or exam going approaching student, it is a stress. What happens in a stress is, this is not a crisis. This is a crisis. A crisis is something which goes up and then comes down. Whereas this is more like a drawn out thing, and it is going to continue. So some amount of stress will be continuing, and this is actually burns out people much more than a crisis which automatically comes down. So students need to be aware, it's a long drawn thing, and it can really burn out people who are involved, and the whole world is involved in this. So if there be any stress is flight or fright, what we need to understand is there is two things which are happening. Most of the students know how to ride a bike. During any stress, significant stress, what happens is we are riding a car or a scooter, pressing both the accelerator and the brake. And that would actually rev, but the vehicle wouldn't go. So that's what happens in a autonomic system. Both the sympathetic and the parasympathetic are actually excited, and it becomes a very difficult issue physiologically for the body to cope when we do both of them. Either we can have a sympathetic, upgoing, or a parasympathetic. Having both of them will actually make us become very helpless, and this is something which students have to understand. So what happens to most of us when we are faced with such a long drawn out trauma or a stress is, there is a loss of, because there is helplessness, there's a loss of self-regulation. When I say that, I am sure when we talk about it, the students would absolutely understand how there is a loss of self-regulation. The sleep and appetite, the routine is absolutely disturbed. People go to bed as and when they want. They may go to bed at 4 o'clock in the morning, or they may get up at 3 o'clock in the evening. So there is no routine. They eat in the afternoon, they skip 2 meals. And there is a lot of trust and hope, which is what? Because they say that I do not know when this examination are going to happen. So there would be a lot of clinging. At the same time, there will be a lot of social avoidance. So there will be, students may avoid talking with their parents in the fear that they would be constantly asking, Enappa, otta idea. So they may fear talking with them or avoiding their own peers, because the peers may say, Enappa, idu bore odita ide. So that also they may avoid people. At the same time, they may cling on to things or a particular person because they do not know how to get out. There's a lot of listlessness, and that's something students have to become, because there is a lot of demotivation. There's listlessness, and that is very, very important to recognize that in your mind. And there is a lot of thought. The emotions which come are highly anger, irritability, anxiety, and a lot of mood swings. Again, this needs, the students need to understand and not think that this is the way, it happens to everybody. Yes, the COVID is happening to everybody, but you need to recognize these emotions in you. I will tell you why you need to recognize that. So these are some of the things. You can become very rebellious, or you can develop a lot of aches and pains, or you can become very, very distant emotionally. Okay, some of the students who are already using a lot of cigarette or plenty of coffee or tea can go overboard with that. Now that there is no liquor, I think there is a regulation on cigarettes also, but somebody can constantly smoke cigarettes because to relieve the anxiety or the anger or the irritability, or coffee and tea. Or you can constantly eat, you know, because you're so listless, you just go into the kitchen, bring a packet of biscuits, and even without thinking, keep on, you know, sort of binging on it. So most of the people, I just want to say that most of the people, like in COVID, 85% are all right. 15% need services, and only about 2% are critically ill. Like that, even in any sort of a difficulty, whether it is a drought, a tsunami, or a COVID, majority of us do well. That's something which everybody needs to remember, that we have the skills to cope with difficulties. We are inbuilt with that. So about 80 to 85% of us do really well. The remaining people may need help. That is something which we need to recognize, that each one of us has the ability. I'm just going to skip these things to make the students understand that since we have the inbuilt ability to cope, how do we cope? And that's where the skills become important. I usually talk about life skills, and that's my work. What is a life skill? Because many people think that just because, you know, in many schools there are life skills programs, people just know the words, but they do not understand what is a skill. The skill is your own abilities, your capacity to deal with a change or a challenge. And COVID is a change. It was not, you know, foreseen. It is a change, and it is also a challenge. So whatever you have within yourself or within your micro environment in the form of a family or teachers or peers, these are the things which you have to deal with that. I do not think that we have beyond that. There are a lot of things which are happening by the government, by the system and everything, but that's beyond us. But what concerns us is you as a person, your abilities, your coping strategies, your family, your peers, and probably to a certain extent the board of examinations who are going to come out based on the system. But what you can control is what we need to worry about. What is beyond our control, we just cannot do anything about it, except as a group, people can approach and then write letters and then request. But so let us look at what is it that I can do as a person. Most of it is common sense, but the common sense one is often we think that, oh, it's already known, we don't need to do it. But it is important, and I will tell you why it is important. The bringing back self-regulation is half the war won. If the students can bring in some amount of discipline and regulation which was present when they were going to the classes or the coaching class, if they could bring about some amount of regulation, self-regulation, and this is not something which should be nagged by the parents. Anything which you do from somebody saying, because most of the people who are going to do this are above the age of or 16 or 17 or 18. Something which is borrowed is is always a burden. Anything which you do on your own because you want to do it becomes your own, and your own is always very important. Because you see what happens in most of the people, many of you might have done yoga classes and breathing and everything. I always joke in classes, you have been breathing from the day you were born. And we breathe till the day, on the day we die only we stop breathing. Still, we go to classes to learn breathing techniques, pranayama, everything. Why? Why is it that we never say, oh, I already know how to breathe. Why should I go to a pranayama class? We don't do it because what happens in a yoga class or a pranayama class is you become aware of your own breathing, which is an innate process, involuntary process. The minute you become aware of an automatic process in a mindful manner, then you can regulate it. And that is the most important aspect of any skill. And you should learn, you would understand it when you actually, somebody has an accident and is on a crutches. Something which you are walking every day. When somebody breaks their leg and then is on crutches and you have to learn how to walk, you would find it so amusing that something which you have done so many years, now you have to know when to bend your hip and when to bend your knee and your ankle. So very important, this awareness of what am I doing and what is it that I can do, this becomes the most important aspect of any coping strategy. So a consistent daily routine. This is very important. And the next one is sleep, because the daily routine, we spend a significant portion of our day life in sleep. And that sleep is somehow usually taken very lightly by the youngsters. And this is the time, I am sure most of the science students will know, when somebody sleeps, we go through various stages of sleep, and early in the morning, we have the corticosteroids produced. And these all importantly help you in learning, concentration, attention, immunity, and mood regulation. So all these things happen during a sleep. Whatever has been learned is encoded, engraved, and it helps you to be recalled the next day or during the day of the examination. And also the corticosteroids the cortisone gets released early in the morning, and that helps you in your immunity and the regulation of the mood swings. And you should know that people with depression have actually a dysregulation of this, cortisone release in the morning. So if we are going to bring that about by not sleeping during that time, I can imagine somebody becoming very easily depressed, because when you reverse a process, the other way also it can happen. When a process can lead to an end, the end is usually started, it can go back. So this is something which people need to have. Study habits, there are good actually assessments for study habits. Look at your own study habits and routine, and have a non-COVID routine. That's very important, because I see so much of COVID talk, constantly COVID, and academic. Both the parents and the students should have things which are non-COVID. And that's why your daily routine of pitching in for the family would be very, very good. Time away from screens and provide support. You may ask, why should I be doing that? There are two things. When you are listless and when you bring in a packet of biscuits, or you just take up iPad and you start looking at some program, at the end of it, what are you trying to do? You are trying to derive some pleasure, and the whole life is based on pleasure principle. So that pleasure, whether by eating a packet of chips or biscuits or watching a 1-hour movie, gives you pleasure. I'm not saying you should not do it, but that is short-lived, because it releases what is called dopamine. But on the other hand, if something has to be lasting, you have to have small successes. If you are able to help your mother mop the house, or cut the onions for your mother, or clean the car for your father, these are small gains where you put in your own effort, and that increases serotonin, and that is what is important. And that's what often we have when we finish a chapter of our book, or we understand something. So we need to look at small gains, not only in the exams, but also in other areas. So problem solving, focus on your skills. You may think that, oh, problem solving, what is it? I know problem solving. No, when you look at it, somebody says, I'm not clear. And I was just explaining to Vijay, people are actually bogged down by this lockdown and the postponement of the examination. What we need to look at it is, the analyzing is, oh, how do I cope with this? It is not a cancellation of the examination. It is just a postponement of the examination. When you are running an athletic event of 5 kilometers, when you have to know that it has been extended to 10 kilometers, you don't stop running. We continue to run. And what happened to the hare which stopped running because it thought it can take a break? So we need to continue. It's only instead of in the month of probably April, it has been postponed by another 2 months. And the way of looking out of the box is to see it as an opportunity to prepare further. I know it may be sometimes very boring because you must have been preparing for 14 months. And when you take up something, even a newspaper, it is your mathematics examination, chapters may run through it even without your wanting. But still, the need to see it as an opportunity to actually prepare further is the way somebody can be creative. And then see that things which you have not covered, whether those could be. So the way of looking at any of the issues is very, very important. And the reasoning, why I need to prepare, because you know that you have an examination and this is not a holiday time. It is actually a much more intensive study time. Many people who have not started early should find it as an opportunity to increase and watch over one's own emotions. That's very, very important, because we know that the thing which comes out for us, for most of us, is our emotions of anger, irritability, worry, and boredom. Then it is followed by thoughts of, I am angry because I'm not having an examination done. And watch emotions in others so that you also are able to deal with that, and watch at your interactions with your family and peers. I think most of you must be doing this, but mainly I would say have some non-COVID, non-academic, chatter with your friends, and also avoid information overload and media overload, because sometimes too much becomes too bad. And that's so much with this sort of a technological advancement. We are constantly on our cell phones and looking at various WhatsApp and becoming more and more demotivated. And a lot of time goes away in that, and we lose time and we waste time. So there are lots of academic resources which are free, which is a very good thing. So looking at it more positively is something which we need to have, because you wouldn't have had many of these things free if COVID had not come in. And look for the correct information, you being young and much more, and be focused. In anything and everything, the focus, if it becomes blurred, then their motivation is lost. Okay. It is universal. So it is only not you. Every student here is now in difficulty. And the good thing is it's universal. So many of you who want to go abroad, sit for SAT and things like that, there also there may be postponement and prolongation of admissions. So that is the good thing about it. It is stressful and it will affect you. So these are the take-home messages. Look at your own skill set. When I say skill set, I'm not talking about chemistry, biology, or physics. Look at your own personal coping, what we say life skill set. Be aware of it. Become mindful of it. Then the same thing applies to the parents also. Not to load constantly saying, Odu, Odu, Odu. That's not the way to go about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for a very clear presentation. The questions have already started pouring in, but I think we'll ask our second panelist, Dr. Raghavendra sir, to address the audience, and then we shall take questions. Our second panelist for today, Dr. M.K. Raghavendra, is the Director of Janardhan Education and Janardhan Educational Services and consultant at Dr. H.N. International Science Center. He has a wide experience in training students for competitive exams like JEE Mains, NEET, KYPY, and Physics Olympiad. He has served as faculty of physics and principal of Diksha and Base PU colleges. He was involved in setting up of the undergraduate lab course at Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. He has been invited by Homi Bhabha Center for Science Education, Mumbai, as a resource person for training students for International Physics Olympiad. He has also accompanied Indian team participating in the International Physics Olympiad as a leader. So your inputs would be very valuable to all the students and the participants here. We welcome you to this program, and over to you, sir.
Can I also share the screen? I have a small presentation to make.
Yes, sir. Sir, I think Vijay
Dr.
sir?
Shrikala Bharat has to exit
Yeah.
the screen.
Is my screen visible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Hello and good morning to all the panelists and also to the lot of students who have shown interest in attending this program. And I see a very distinguished panel of say psychiatrists, both as a panelist and also as a moderator and the organizers. And also very well thought of, this program is actually in need of the hour. Especially psychiatrists giving an angle and then trying to tell us how to really cope with a situation like this. I would like to bring in some perspective as a person involved in education, as a teacher actively involved in teaching the students, especially during this time. I can basically look at this whole situation and categorize that into three things. There are some things which are uncertain. There are some things which are certain. And there are a lot of things which are speculations. But in that speculation, we'll only pick up some realistic speculations. I'm keeping actually the competitive exam and the other exams in mind and trying to talk about that. Number one, which is the most uncertain thing, is the date of examination. Everyone, in fact, is aware of this. Admission to the next course. When will it happen? What form will it be? And if you actually look at some of the discussions that are happening already, and also some of the columns written in the newspaper by noted educationalists, you know that there is already a tectonic shift from the way the things are going to go on hereafter. The mode of education in the next semester is actually a big question mark. That happens even at the +2 level and also at the undergrad level. People are thinking of many different ways in which this course can actually take place. Some of them can also be a big advantage for countries like India, where scaling up was a problem, and maybe this will actually give us opportunity to scale up. So look for good things, especially in this mode of education in the next few years. What are certain things? Okay, there will be exam, no doubt about it. Have no doubts. The problem basically is when. Keep that aside, but exams are going to be there. And you know what is the most certain thing that I don't think none of us can escape from? Preparing for this examination. This is again another very certain thing. So with these two certain things, there is one more thing which has come as a good, say, initiative from the society and also the government. The entire nation is going through, world is going through, I'm sure, but India as such is also going through, entire nation is going through this problem. Now, what is happening to us is also happening to everyone, and therefore, when they want to conduct an examination, there will be adequate, time given to you, and they're going to notify well in advance. So that you can be also very sure of. And one more thing that I find, looking at the websites of CBSE and also NTA, which conducts the NEET and the mains examination, and also Karnataka board, which looks into the PU examination, and also the Karnataka competitive authority, examination authority, they all are in favor of students. They say that they are going to basically keep this in mind when they decide about the date and also about the other aspects of the examination, about the location and so on and so forth. They have made enough concession there. So authorities are in favor. So this is actually a certain thing, and it's a very welcome thing for us. We can be assured that there are people who are going to take care of us when they decide about these examination dates and venue. What can be the realistic speculation? There are many of them. Okay, I had an opportunity to talk to some of the IIT professors when I had a similar webinar in Homi Bhabha Science Center a few days back. There, many of the IIT professors actually told us that mains examination possibility can be in the first or the second week of June. There's a good possibility there. And NEET also will be somewhere around that time. CET also may be pitched in around that time. And the good thing is, both the Education Minister of Karnataka State and also the HRD Minister of the Government of India have assured the students that there will be enough time given for them to prepare, okay, before these exams start. JEE Advanced may be 1 month after that. So somewhere in the month of July. Admission to the college possibly in the mid of August or September. Now I'm basically pitching in this realistic speculation only to give us some kind of a target. So where is the earliest that the exams can happen? Maybe first week or second week of July. So you can always keep this as your targets. Helps you to be realistic when you fix up your targets. Now let's get the big picture. Generally what happens is when we are looking at a problem, we look at it from a very, very close, from a very close, say, view. Like you keep your finger very close to your eye, you will always find that it's difficult to even see your finger clearly. You need at least 25 centimeter, which is called as the least distance of distinction, to see something clearly. So go a few steps back and look at the big picture as to what has happened until now. All that you have to do for the competitive examination is prepare for 3 subjects. It can be PCM or PCB. And each one actually has something like 33 chapters. And what have you done with that now? Since most of the board exams are over, only maybe 1 or 2 subjects remaining in Karnataka, and maybe in CBSE there are a few more subjects remaining. But you would have done your preparation to the fullest. The course preparation are all over by this time. I'm sure about it. Many of you would have done that. What is remaining is the last minute fine tuning. Remember, you earlier used to have a very small duration for this fine tuning. Now it's an advantage. You have a much larger window for your fine tuning of the remaining part. Okay, is what needs to be done. I find for myself, okay, I used to run around a lot. I used to go to my HL Science Center. I used to go to my tuition centers. I used to talk to different principals, teachers, students. I used to run around. Now that because of the lockdown, I have a lot of time at my disposal, almost like 16 hours at my disposal. I'm talking about myself. I'm sure this will be true for everyone. And you know what the biggest thing is? Absolutely no distractions. You don't have mall, you don't have cinema theaters, you don't have bike rides, you don't have anything else, okay? I think what teachers and parents couldn't do during this examination time, I think COVID has done that to us. And you know what? We should request the government to lock down during March and May every year like this, okay? So that students and teachers and everyone will calm down, sit in their place, and then try to actually analyze things. I would like to always say that this is both your study holidays and vacation. I don't think you will get vacation after this. So it is both a study holiday and a vacation. And you know what? You can always divide your time into maybe something like half study and half time to enjoy. I would request that you all make these slots into something like 3 hours. Why 3 hours? All your exams are 3 hours duration. Most of the exams you consider is all of 3 hours duration, except CET, which is 1 hour duration. All your other exams are 3 hours, including the board examination. So make a 3 hour slot. Okay. Be very clear that you're going to sit for 3 hours and then maybe do a revision or answer a paper or do whatever. Okay, do something. And then give yourself a break after that. And when you give a break, enjoy it to the fullest. Okay, don't worry about the academics then. Give this break for yourself, enjoy it to the fullest. Okay, because it's also your vacation time. So it's like basically combining the two. Now you need to actually play hard, but remember you also need to study harder in this time. So you can plan your entire 16 hours in a proper way. Now, how do you plan your study time? Now, whenever you look at the number of topics that you have, it's such a huge one. I know it's a huge one. You can divide that into some subtopics and then say that in physics, I'm going to study some 4 topics today and only look for the topics where I'm basically have weakness and strength. There's a question already there for the panelists, which says, how do my confidence is not there for the NEET exam, even though I study. The reason why this happens is we don't have a clear-cut idea as to what our strengths and weaknesses are. Okay, we don't even bother to list it down. So sit calmly in one place and list down what your strengths are. You will find that looking at the strengths, you get a lot of confidence. And there may be actually something like 30%, 40% where you're not very confident about. Now, identify them and then strengthen them. You have been given an extended time now to strengthen your weaknesses. Don't worry about the weaknesses. You need to actually overcome that. There may be a chapter like rigid body dynamics in physics, or maybe electrostatics, or maybe some chapters in magnetism, which is very confusing. Now, this is the time for you to actually look at the subject in a much more deeper way, not just for the examination, but to get your fundas strong. Getting your fundas strong is not important just for the exam, but also for your future courses that you're going to take. You may become a doctor, you may become an engineer, you can become a scientist or whatever. These fundas, if you are strong, is going to give you confidence. Solve as many papers as possible. That's going to give you a lot of focus and a purpose. And as madam was saying, that gives you a small gain, okay, small gains and successes, okay, that you can experience when you solve a paper and analyze it. And most important, lot of online testing portals are available where when you answer a question paper, they come with a lot of analytics, okay, where you have gone wrong, where your problem areas are, and so on and so forth. So make use of those things and then strengthen your weak areas. Also plan your free time well. Make some good habits, okay? I don't know, I mean, to call it as a good habit, but make some habits which will actually help you throughout your entire life. Listening to a good music, whichever you think is good, and then have a yoga practice sessions, have a workout. One of my colleagues was mentioning, when you don't have opportunity to go out, start going inner, okay? Start going inside. So this is a time that you can go and then explore yourself much better. I think talking to parents and grandparents are very, very important. I would like to actually narrate one instance here. My grandfather used to always tell me that he was born just after the first plague, which destroyed most of the villages in India, okay, which was a big disaster at that time. And he says he survived that plague. And after that, he had 9 children and 33 grandchildren and countless number of great-grandchildren. So he could actually come out of that disaster and then succeed himself in the life and then bringing into a whole heritage of an entire family there. So talk to your parents, grandparents. They have a lot to actually share with you. So utilize your free time for that now. If possible, learn cooking. Maybe a lot of you will be going to hostels after this for your undergrad program. This is going to be very, very helpful. Many of my students in IISc used to tell me, if I had done cooking, I would have been far better in this place, sir. So maybe you can utilize your time for that, or do something that is going to actually bring that small successes and learning that is there with you. Play with children if possible. If you have children around, play with them. They are going to give you the most entertainment. Okay, play with them. Don't play with your mobile phones or video games. That is a bore. You will find out that playing with children is much more better than playing with your mobile phones. Sleep well. Okay, madam has already told you what happens when you sleep well. Be positive. Don't worry about the doomsday theories. A lot of them come and gone. Someone had actually predicted after 2000 world will end. It has not ended. 20 years we're all actually doing well. So that will never happen. World has survived worse times than this. It has survived pandemics, epidemics, floods, and tsunamis. So please remember, this too shall pass. I would like to end by saying, remember, all of us are going through historically significant time. And you students are going through a significant time. You can be like my grandfather, who will be narrating these incidents to your children and grandchildren, saying, during my time, COVID had come, my exams were scheduled during that time, but I still managed. I could do very well in the examination and do wonderfully well after that. Okay, all the best. And I would definitely like to thank the Indian Psychiatric Society and also the Indian Association of Private Psychiatry, Tele-Arogya, and also our organization is called Gnanadhara Educational. It is Gnanadhara, which is the flow of knowledge. Yeah. With this, let me end my little presentation. I wanted to share some of these things, which is basically collection of job, not just my ideas, also my colleagues at Gnanadhara and my friends. Thank you very much.
So thank you so much for a very lucid presentation. I think the participants of this webinar have been having a very good time, one with practical experience knowledge as to how to handle competitive exams, and also alongside with a lot of tips to maintain their psychological well-being and prepare for their best. There are a lot of questions pouring in, and I would like to start off with a few questions which have appeared on the question answer box. There have been a few students who are asking, one is Abhay Surya and one is Deepa, who have mentioned that poor confidence is one of the most important problems that they are facing during this time when they're trying to appear for their competitive exams. Ma'am, would you like to say something about it? Ma'am, I think you need to unmute your mic.
Yeah, now I am I think unmuted. It's a good question because most of the people, most of the students go through this sort of emotions that they are not very sure, they are not very confident about when they are studying, and especially when there is an impediment. And I would like to ask them, this lack of confidence was there even before COVID, even if COVID had not appeared, had not occurred, were they not very confident? Some of the things is, as I said, youngsters need to become aware of what's happening in the mind and not only the conclusions.
I think it organizes to mute participants when ma'am is speaking.
Yes, I think so.
Dr. Jagadish? Dr. Jagadish, I think he's...
Yes.
Please
Yes.
mute your mic. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so one thing is, any person, Dr. Raghavendra said, you need to sit and think about what we say, understanding self or self-awareness. Why is this lack of confidence because of what I am like, the subjects which I have taken as options? Do I like them? What do I see myself doing later? And some of the things which he also said is, when you solve a paper, do you feel that you have done reasonably whatever is your preparation? According to that, have you answered? And does it give you enough? For example, if I am a person who is very average, so if I am an average person, average intelligence, ability, hard work, all these things, then what I expect is something somewhere about 60% or 70% of the marks. And then you plan your life also accordingly. But I understand all the people here are going for competitive examinations. So sometimes your goals may not be is what you want or you are capable. So it is when you need to understand your strengths and your own limitations. And if it is because of that, then you need to do something about changing your options or doing something which you like, either as your main profession or as a, many people do. For example, there are people who have done engineering but are also very good in music because that's what gives them a lot of satisfaction. I do not know that would be very applicable right now in the next 1 month. But you need to look at how much you enjoy what you are doing and how much comfortable you are doing. That's the most important thing. And are you doing things? Many a times I find that in our country, because of the academic stress, all confidence is based only on academic performance. Do you have confidence on non-academic issues? That's very, very important, because you are not only a student, you are also a person who's going to become an adult. So if you have confidence on non-academic issues, for example, I'm quite kind, I'm a very considerate person, I'm a fair person, I'm a sincere person, I have adequate integrity, I am quite, I have a lot of friends who would like me. So those are non-academic confidence. Okay. My mother or my father appreciate some of the things which I do. So we need to, so the whole house is not only the drawing hall, it is also the garage, the bathroom. So that is something you need to build your confidence holistically rather than only academically. Academics are a part of your life. So if you are able to build your confidence otherwise, then your academics also, and an introspection of your academics, then it would be much better, and you will have idealistic, realistic explanation and not idealistic expectations.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir, would you like to add anything to this?
Yeah, especially the lack of confidence during the examination comes up because we don't actually sit and analyze the situation there. Many of my students, when they come and tell me that they have problem with the confidence, but I study, sir, I don't have confidence. The problem is they do not know what they know and what they do not know. I think you need to make a clear list of things that you know about. if you start actually listing out number 1, 2, 3 about the things that you know about, your confidence actually builds up. When you say you don't have confidence, you may not have confidence maybe in something like 20 or 30% of the subject. But that is going to mask and tell you that you have lack of confidence in the entire thing. Okay, so have a clear-cut idea as to what is it that you basically feel diffident about. Okay, the examination is going to help you, or when you solve the paper, this will help you in identifying it. If you have problem in listing out, simply go and answer a paper. Okay, you will find that out of something like 45 questions in physics need, you may answer 20 questions comfortably. That's actually a good thing to start with. And another 25 questions where you have difficulty is telling you, hey, these are the topics where you feel that you are not basically prepared. Pick up that and then give enough time to study and understand that. Number 1, identifying gives you a lot of confidence, and preparation gives you extra confidence. I'm sure you'll be able to do the next paper much better. Okay, so you can start actually this exercise now. You have enough time. Okay, that's one thing that is there. You have enough time for 1 month. It's only that fine tuning that should happen. When my students tell me and then ask them to do this exercise, many of them have found it to be very useful. That, sir, after answering this paper, I found that I can actually answer the second years very well. First years I have difficulty, and that is what is actually pulling down my marks. Okay, good, you have analyzed it, and now go and see how you fix your first year topic. That happens to anyone. It happens to doctors especially. They forget the handwriting after a while. Okay, they don't even write properly their prescription. So it's very normal that you forget things after a while. So first year forgetting is so common. So go back and then look at it once, look at all the topics once, and then revise it. Maybe you start answering those questions as well. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. There are a few questions that are repetitive, which are coming up on the question answer slot. So what I'll do is I'll put 2 or 3 questions together and I will ask it out so that those students also will know that their questions have been answered. The next question is from Sohan and Sanjana, who seem to be having the same kind of problem. One is that they're not able to push themselves to study. That is, motivation they feel is very less. And the second thing is they are wondering how to cope with subjects which they are not good at. Those they are good at, they are comfortable with. But those they are not very comfortable with, how do you cope with them? Madam, would you like to go first?
I do not know how you deal with subjects which you are not good at. For example, you need to sort of do a lot of peer learning, group learning, and also learning, because that is the way I think many people are able to, because when people are able to learn in a group situation, especially with the best friends who are good at the subjects. For example, chemistry is very difficult for you and you are not good at it. So you join 1 or 2, not a big group where there'll be a lot of distractions. Or work with somebody, a senior, an uncle who's a chemistry graduate, work out things with him or with her, or an aunt who's a chemistry graduate or a postgraduate who can do things with them. And you need to put in that many number of hours. There is an idiom which says that if you have done something for 10,000 hours, you become an expert in that. So to become an expert in anything, you need 10,000 hours. Don't consider class LKG to what you are doing now. That is not 10,000 hours. Okay. Sorry. So, okay. So that is one way of doing it. And then accepting that probably your marks in that will be less. And as Sir has already said that go through, sit with somebody and analyze what are the areas you can do. But many of us have difficulty in accepting that, yes, some of these things are difficult for me. But in non-academic things, we are able to do that. Oh, I don't like cooking. It doesn't come very naturally to me. I don't like cooking. We are able to say that. We are able to be very proud of our weaknesses. But when it comes to one is body image, that I am not very tall, I am not very fair, I am not having a good skin. And then academics, these are things which youngsters have great problem in accepting some of the weaknesses and analyzing. I think Dr. Raghavendra, how to, improve. I was very, very poor in mathematics, but I stood first in my SSLC thanks to a SSLC person who was in my house, where I used to sit with him every day and work for 2 hours. That is all I did. I did not become, even today, I don't like mathematics. But I knew there was a task. This I'm talking about 45 years back. He was excellent. And I used to sit with him and spend 2 hours every day. And I stood first in my school, better than the person who was so easy in mathematics. So sometimes it's just, putting your head to the nuke.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir, is there anything you would want to add?
No, I think ma'am has summed it up very well and answered it very well. Just want to add, if you don't like a subject, don't worry. You don't have to marry that subject and be with the subject for a long time. No? Only for another month or so. So somehow manage that subject. Okay. I think you people are very good at that. I have seen, in fact, you people managing with people whom you do not like, but still you are able to cope with them because you know how to manage things well. Same way, manage also that particular subject. Maybe physics or mathematics, something that you may not get it easily. And for example, I didn't get biology that easily. But I found that something very interesting happening in IASC undergraduate program. The student who is very, very good in physics used to actually sit with the students who would not like physics at all and teach them the physics. And they used to find that learning physics from a student, from his peer, was much more effective than learning physics from a professor. Okay, so you will find that the subject can be learned very easily or manage the subject easily when you actually have your friend who is good at it and then explaining that to you. You can reciprocate with the subject where you are strong in. Okay, remember, when you teach, you learn, and therefore it's going to also help the student who is teaching you. It's going to become better. So have this symbiosis. And I also see that whenever I open a book, it's so boring. I don't want to. I mean, who likes studying physics, chemistry at this age? No one would like. Okay, anyone would open that book, it's always boring. But what to do? You need to improve your skill sets. You need to become expert in it. And therefore, you need to sacrifice a little. And remember, this hurdle is only there for first few hours and few days. Initially, you need to stay put with that. See, when you go to gym, the first 3-4 days are very tough. Okay, you go to gym and next day you never want to go there. Because that's how the entire thing is. It's going to actually wear you out so badly, and all your body parts are aching. But still, if you have a resolve to actually become more healthy and become fit, you will go to gym. You will not really leave it. Or those who go to gym in spite of this are the ones who is going to succeed. Same way, one day you open the book, it's going to appear to be boring and disgusting. Stay with it for some time. You will get used to it. You also do well in it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I hope Deepa's and Jaswant's queries. I listened to the both of you when I was giving my competitive exams. Thank you so much for that input. Also, the next question which a parent has asked, Mrs. Shreyi, is that she is confused about how to handle her child during this period. She feels that she shouldn't nag her to study. At the same time, she finds it very uncomfortable to be when her child is not studying. So how do you cope with that, and how do you help your child to become better or to follow a certain discipline is what she's asking. Ma'am?
Yeah, I think whoever the parent is asking a very important questions, because as I said, whenever we deal with a stress, it is a strength-based approach we need to have, because we need to basically believe as a parent, because your child after that entrance examination is over is going to go away from you as an adult, and he's actually stepping into youthhood and young adulthood. So you need to believe that the person has the resilience to be able to do that. And if you think that generally parents and mothers and fathers are able to understand what their children, especially the young people, are doing, like whether they are wasting their time, and or whether they are studying and they are taking adequate breaks because they are able to see that. So if you think that, as the doctor said, this is both a study holiday. So nagging, according to me, doesn't fetch anything. On the other hand, if you are able to actually work with a child because you are a graduate yourself, either in chemistry or in physics, that's a different thing. But constantly telling a child, go and study, waste marta idea, it doesn't, people should hear positive things rather than negative things. When he or she does a bit of housework and, appreciate that and point out that. Okay. So when you do that, and also when they sit and study, at the time, again, give a feedback, that you're been studying for about 2 hours. Do you want a cup of tea or do you want a few biscuits? So that means you are actually saying what he or she did. That is a better way rather than saying, hey, solpa odko, pariksha ide, naale naan baralla. So a lot of these things, parents actually transmit anxiety onto children. And anxiety is one of the most contagious, much more contagious than COVID-19.
True, ma'am. Sir, is there anything you would like to add?
But this is something that I, as a parent, also find it challenging, especially in these times. There's absolutely no motivation. There is no exam in the near sight. So how do I really make my children sit up and then study? I think this is something that I have tried. I just want to share with all of you. Give them, in fact, small tasks. Many of them will not be able to figure out as to what these tasks can be. Give them a task. Tell them that now for the next, say, 2 hours or maybe 1.5 or 2 hours, you are going to basically study a particular thing that you are going to decide. Maybe a small chapter on physics or a chemistry or a mathematics or history or something, where you are going to say that you're going to study for 2 hours. And then after that, you are entitled for a break. You come out, let us actually be together and then play around and then do something which is going to actually ease out things. And then after that, again, give a small task and see to it they accomplish. Initially, when you give a task, only 25–30% may get accomplished. Don't get bothered. This is how we also were studying in our days. Okay, a task is given, we are able to accomplish 25–30. Be sympathetic to them. Encourage them to do a little more. Next time, they are going to do a better one. But instead of saying, as ma'am was rightly mentioning, you're not done this, you're not done this, and I was doing like this. In my times, this is how it used to be. But rather be realistic and give them a small task and make them enjoy that accomplishment of tasks. Okay? Be very realistic when you give a task. If you feel that your child is able to focus only for 1 hour, give a task for that. And see to it that get extended slowly. I mean, day after the day, they are going to actually progress and then manage that. If you teach them how to actually assign a task and then accomplish it, you will be teaching them how to deal with their life, rest of their life. Okay, please help them out. Don't feel that they are not able to do it at all, because no one actually teaches all this in the schools and colleges, unfortunately. Okay, so I think we need to really come and say that it's important to fix up a task and then do it. Like mothers actually do it. No, morning cooking has to happen. I mean, you can't help. After 3 hours, we all are going to actually ask for food. So she basically puts a task and accomplishes. Same way, do it also for your child. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. The next set of questions are pertaining to addictions and distractions. There have been a few students who have asked how to overcome addictions in general and addiction to public using for about 3 to 4 hours a day. At the same time, there have been 2 or 3 parents who have posed the question is how to help the child stay away from these, and how do you manage when the child is addicted to a cell phone game or a video game or anything like that. Shrikala ma'am?
Yeah, when they say child, I'm not sure what age they are talking about, because this is an open forum. And I thought this is mainly for adolescents above the age of 16 up to probably, 18 or whatever it is. So when you say a child, I mean they are meaning their offsprings. And one of the young person has said PU, that some game he or she is playing. Okay, one of the things is I'm very happy and I congratulate that person for becoming aware that the person is spending a lot of time. That's the first step, that I am unnecessarily spending a lot of time. There are experts who help, and there are programs also online to help these addictions. But a simple suggestion I would take is either roping your father or mother or a brother or a sister in actually helping you with this sort of long hours of playing the game. So one suggestion I would do is, okay, give the cell phone away to them. When you need to talk with your friends for peers and other things, then you take it. But at the same time, allow yourself to play for some time. And when you have played for about, 50 minutes, just switch it off and then put a calendar. There are calendars, State Bank of India and other things which have no pictures, only things. Just go and put for every hour or every half an hour, you can put a stroke. You finish it and you go and put a stroke there in front of your study table. So you would know at the end of, suppose you have played 3 hours, there will be 6 things. The idea is not to make it 0. The idea is make it to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But taking the help of somebody whom you trust within your family, because you may be spending a lot of your time within the house during this lock time, looking at playing the game. Just give it away to them. Don't even, but you need trust. See, in all these things, one is motivation, one is what is my goal. If you are very clear about your goal, then, and if there are people who can help you, absolutely no problem. Give it away to them. Take it only a few minutes and allow yourself to play. There's nothing wrong. Bring it down by having visual feedback.
Thank you, ma'am.
You need visual feedback every time you sit somewhere.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir?
I don't think I have much to add, except one thing, that each of these can be made into your giving yourself a little award. You study for 3 hours and then you can play PUBG for half an hour. So that can become a motivation for you to study for 3 hours. Okay. So put that a little goal. 3 hours of study, half an hour PUBG. Maybe you are waiting to play PUBG and then therefore do a 3 hours of study.
Thank you, Kusum, Ritvik, and questions have been answered. Then the next question is from a child who says, it's an anonymous, says that how to convince ourselves when we don't get what we want. I think what he means is that whenever he gives this competitive exam and he doesn't get what he's expecting, then how do you cope with it? If there is, say, he wants to get into NEET and doesn't, then what and how do you deal with it, ma'am?
Yeah, it's very difficult. I acknowledge that. Suppose you want something very, very badly, especially when it decides your career and you don't get what you, but I also see at the same time, this person probably has taken, if I'm wrong, please excuse me, probably you have done it again. So failures, taking failures and then, taking it to the next level is what is good. But at the same time, also looking for other options. Today, I wish I am doing something where I am 16 or 18, because when we were young, becoming an engineer and doctor were the only options which were available. But today, there are so many other options which are available that people can actually do very well in them. If you have the ability and the creativity and the motivation, there are very, very, very many options. These 3 competitive examinations are not the only option. Talk with your somebody like Dr. Raghavendra or a good teacher. See, one of the things which most of the adolescents and youth should know is you can be a mentally healthy person if you have one stable relationship with an adult. One relationship can be the boat which can, or the ship which can help you to sail this whole life of difficulties. So if you have somebody who's trustworthy and with whom you have a good relationship, who doesn't nag you, doesn't give you a lot of advice, and then doesn't say, this is why I told you that day itself. So such a person, if you have one person with whom you have a good relationship, you can discuss issues. This is not, so what then? And also accept that many a times failures are part of our family, part of our life. And I also congratulate the person for taking the next attempts and other things and not becoming, very disheartened, because emotions run high in adolescents and youth and people do very, very drastic things. So it is very easy for me to say that take failure as a part of life, but I think you also need to look at other options and also examine why Is there no time? Are you, very slow? What are the examinations where you're not getting adequate, results? All those things, I think. The academic part of it, I think Dr. Raghavendra can say. But the other aspects, look at other options. Look at other options, which can interest you. And then have a talk with somebody whom you trust.
Yes, sir.
Here, I would like to tell parents.
Raghavendra, sir?
No, Preeti.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Many a times in today's nuclear families, children do not develop that sort of a relationship with an adult outside the parents, which is really a sorry state of affairs. Parents should encourage. That's why earlier days we used to have the concept, the godfather, godmother, or the religious head and things like that. But today we are not even talking in terms with our Chikama and Dodamma and Ajji, Tata. So we just say, birthday, happy birthday, Father's Day, Mother's Day. We need to have one more person with whom you can have a good talk. And parents should encourage that from a very, very young age.
I think,
Sir?
I think it's a very, very valid question. But please remember, in this days and age, I think one should have at least option A and option B in your career deciding courses. Just sticking to one particular course and saying that this is the only thing that I'm going to do may be a little risky. I'm very happy that you are very focused about such a thing. But please remember, your success basically doesn't just depend on your competence nowadays. It depends on the competition level all over India. If you look at the medical field and you want to get into or become a doctor, something like 12 to 15 lakh students write this examination called NEET. And out of that, how many seats do Karnataka actually have? Something like 7,000 or 8,000 seats. And for the huge number of students who write in Karnataka itself, the number of seats is very, very less. So there is an inherent, say, not being successful in such examinations. Not just your problem, it's a problem that is there. So therefore, especially when you're writing an examination where the success rate is very, very small, you should have option B. Because I have read in an article that when they actually go for an engagement or a war, okay, an army goes for it, they will always have an option B, a plan B ready. Plan A is to do something, but if that doesn't succeed, plan B is to actually achieve another small target that has to be actually destroyed. If not the big one, at least some small thing they would accomplish and come. Now, something similar should also be your strategy. You want to actually strike the big one. If it happens, very well done. But if it doesn't happen, there will be another course which should also be of your interest, okay, which will be similar to your interest. Maybe not as completely as what you wanted, but at least something like 70% or 80% of it would match with your interest. So keep that option also ready with you, okay? Then coping up with failure may become a little more easier. But remember, the success and the failure nowadays is not just within your own domain. It has got to do with a lot of things that are there around the society, and therefore you should take it always that if not this, hey, look, I have another option where I will go and also succeed there. For you to succeed, your interest in that is most important. All courses nowadays have equally good scope. I find that a saying by a very, very famous educationalist very helpful in this. He says, in any area, the top shelves are always empty. Okay, it can be in medicine, it can be in engineering, science, education, or say history or whatever. If you become best in that area, you are always sought after. Okay, and therefore, when they say top shells are empty, it is actually in reference to your atomic structure, where all the electrons wants to be in the lowermost orbit. But if you can go to the higher orbit, then there is a lot of space there available for you to occupy. Okay, what I mean by saying go to the higher orbit is to become best in that. Okay, so let your aim to become best in the profession that you are going to choose after, or you will be in fact allotted later on. So take it that way. I think life may become much more easier I mean, this is the way that I have dealt with my failures and success. So I'm just sharing that with you all.
Thank you, sir. I think you have effectively answered the next question also. That is how, please kindly suggest a few good courses, which you have already answered. Also, there is a girl, Pallavi, who is asking whether pharmacy is a good course to take on in the future. Any take on this, sir?
Yeah,
I think they are very specific questions, but I understand that she's asked. So I
think at this point in time, I would say pharmacy is the best profession that anyone can use. Yeah, please do take it.
Okay.
Also look for the places where in the pharmacy also becoming just a pharmacist and then maybe becoming actually someone who is going to just test a drug or something. Become a pharmacist who would basically involve himself or herself in research. Okay, India requires people who can do research in pharmacy. As I was reading, in fact, some time back, lot of medicine, though the raw material come from all over the world, India is the hub for manufacturing of medicines. As was very recently demonstrated that, what is that called? That's the medicine which is helpful for curing COVID. That's what America at least thinks. They got that medicine from India because we have extremely good pharmacies. I think there's a belt in Gujarat, I know, where the huge number of pharmacies are there. So there's plenty of scope for pharmacy in terms of research, in terms of manufacturing, and also in terms of pharmacies that are there in plenty of the hospitals and so on and so forth. So if you are interested in that, please pursue a great area.
Thank you, sir. So the next question is from a parent, Mr. Sharan, who's asking, how do you keep your child's mind focused onto what they are doing, and how to make sure that the child is very less anxious during this social circumstance, that is regarding that the person is seeing this everything on the news and getting about their future things. How do you go about helping the child reduce this anxiety? Ma'am?
Yeah. Again, I'm not sure when somebody says child, so is that an offspring or an adolescent? Because if it is an adolescent, it's the adolescent who should be asking and say, how do I deal with my anxiety? How do I deal with my performance and things like that? If somebody is asking about a very small child, an 8-year-old child or a 9-year-old child, then it is different. It depends upon how two things could be: the child temperamentally could be an anxious child. The second thing is the child learns a lot of responses from the people around that. So people, if that is more so, if because of the modeling that, you know, people, the child or the adolescent has become very anxious, that people have to become aware of it and trim it down. Okay. And for anxiety, one is we need to understand, make the person understand certain anxiety relieving techniques. So some of that, you know, we have already said about, you know, I also talked about it, whether it is, you know, breathing techniques or yoga and other things which can actually improve your physical ability. When somebody becomes physically more able, so if somebody is very, very anxious about, you know, bullies and other things, we say join a karate class or join a class.
Huh?
So something which is opposite, okay, can actually help.
Honey.
Lot of helping the child to interact in other situations can also help, because I'm answering all these questions thinking that the person is asking for a 8-year-old child. If it is an adolescent, they need to actually do a lot of homework. If they are very, very anxious to the extent of it being a problem, if it is not a problem, most of us are socially anxious in strange situations and also in competitive situations. Accept that after some time, whether it dissipates, if it doesn't and it interferes with your performance, you need to do something about it. So one of the things which Dr. Raghavendra has been talking about is mock examination and solving papers, making presentations to your teachers in the class, getting up in the class and then asking questions. So you put small tasks which puts you on the block and then try to succeed in that. If it is more than that, contact a mental health professional. So these are the 3 steps. If it is a child and adolescent, small steps, and success and recognition of that. If it is more than that, definitely a psychiatrist or a psychologist.
Thank you, ma'am. So the next question, which I think the parent directed towards you is, I think it's a student who has asked whether how to stay focused on the task given when he's studying, how to stay focused on that particular subject, because he gets confused what to study and what not to study. And he feels that he has a low mood while sitting down to study. So how do you cope with that is what he asks.
Yeah, very difficult actually. I don't know. I mean, see, what I've always found for myself is if I keep actually reading something, it's generally boring. Okay, but rather if I take a pen and a pencil and then start actually writing down few things, it always gives me a better focus of things. Okay, so maybe that if you want to study, let us say, some aspects of chemistry, and you find that in the chemistry chapter, the challenge always is to remember the proper pattern. So if you keep reading that pattern, it's so boring, it will never register in your mind. But rather, when you actually are reading something, make a note of the things that you have, maybe a property of a metal or something, and make some 5 or 6 points. Okay. Now these 5 or 6 points are something which will help you to maybe crack 4 questions or write an essay type answer or something. But make a note of what you are reading. That gives a better focus. So writing gives a better focus. And also in the subjects where you find it's actually not really very interesting, making some block diagrams, making some tables, making some chart will be a very useful thing. When you're making the chart itself, you're involving yourself in the subject. Okay, but when you actually have a dry reading of something, it is not actually a novel which is going to interest you and then make you actually do better, and keep you actually reading, makes you actually reading. Many novels are so interesting that you don't even want to drop it down. Okay, but subjects like this requires a little more, say, than that reading like a novel. Okay, many of us read physics. You can't do physics by reading. So make a table of things, okay? Units and dimension. Make a table and then write down that. Makes you involved and also gives a little more better focus. So this is the way that I think you can improve your focus onto things that you are doing. So cultivate the habit of writing rather than simply reading. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think we are having a lot of questions and lack of time, so I will club a few questions together. Ma'am, there is a student who has asked, how is it that we handle peer pressure during this time? They have not specified what kind of peer pressure they are facing right now, but it's a general question.
Yeah, it is. I also saw that question. Yeah, it depends upon, because peer pressure can be very good. If you join a group of students who are very focused, study, and also have fun. So many a times we choose single groups. We have a group for music, we have a group for sports, we have a group for studies. So it depends upon, and some of the peers may overlap in some of these groups. So it depends upon what your peer pressure, what is the peer pressure on. Is it on buying the latest model of the cell phone, or is it on using somebody's cell phone is. Okay, is it on doing the not so appropriate things, or is it doing the appropriate things? Not appropriate things, I think people need to learn assertive skills. That is a life skill. So there are various techniques of saying no to peers. So those are things which, the first step is identifying that you are under significant peer pressure. So once you recognize that, I think one of the things which you need to know is, within that group, is there a person who's actually your own, chuddy dost? Whether that person would support you to avoid this peer pressure, and what does that person do? So take that help of that person, and then learn some assertive skills of, saying no, walking away, not explaining, standing there. So, and decide for what you will be part of that group and for what you will not be part of the group. So for example, in my life skills class, there is usually we have a lot of role plays where the person, actually the group asks them to have alcohol or cigarettes and things like that. How does somebody deal with that is something which we do multiple role plays. So you need to have, many of the schools should teach, especially youngsters and youth, how to say no. That doesn't mean that tomorrow that a child will come to the mother and then say, I don't like chemistry, so I'm not writing the competitive examination. That's not the way we need to look at it. We need to be able to say no for something where you are coerced, okay, whether it is bullying or other things. So being able to, and that comes only with practice. It doesn't come overnight, Preeti. So the person has to actually learn assertive skills and know the difference between aggression and assertion. There's a huge difference between assertion and aggression.
Thank you, ma'am. I think there are a whole lot of questions which are very specific, saying that is software engineering, very good course, MSc psychology, veterinary science, genetics. All these, I think, probably Sven ma'am have already answered that these are not within the purview of discussion. And if you are interested in that, probably I think that is the best thing for you. So we go on to the next question, which is probably all important and most psychiatrists, people who are working in the field of education would have faced. How do we handle exam, ma'am?
Exam? What is
Fear.
it?
Exam fear, ma'am.
Yeah, the whole talk is on exam fear only, no?
Exam fear, yeah.
Yeah. So exam fear is part and parcel of everybody. Even before coming to this panel, I'm sure most of us would have said, oh, what sort of questions will... Some amount of performance anxiety is a very good motivator. A fear is a good motivator when you are able to control it. So saying that I'll be absolutely fearless is not a very good thing, because then you do not know it, there is no motivation. Because when you have some fear, there's a little bit of adrenaline which is secreted, which sort of gives you the josh to do the things. So fear is good, not bad at all. And it is a survival mechanism. When it goes beyond, when fear is, as long as it is only eustress, it increases performance. And at some point of time, it plateaus your performance. And beyond that, it becomes distress. So that is when you should actually catch yourself, whether it is making me, distressing, or whether it is making my performance plateau. So that differentiation, everybody should. Not bad. Within limits, fear about everything, about transgressing things, stealing. It helps us values to certain extents, fear. All right. So when it becomes beyond certain things, it could be either it is because of your nature, in which case you have to learn relaxation techniques of yoga, breathing, pranayama, whatever it is, or a psychologist's help of, relaxation techniques. And then also change the thoughts. See, two things which are important. When we are very anxious, we breathe. Usually we breathe 15 times in a minute. But when we are anxious, we breathe more faster. So when we can twist the whole thing, flip the thing, when you start breathing very, very carefully, knowingly, decrease your breathing rate, then anxiety comes down. That's the whole idea of deep breathing techniques. Similarly, other things. The thoughts also influence your anxiety. So if you can actually catch your thoughts, that's what we often do. Because many a times we think that all or none. If I do not pass this examination, then everything is lost. So a lot of these such, sort of drastic, irrational, illogical thoughts have to be challenged and then, worked through. Not just the day before the examination. All these things have to, as I said, everything can be done only with hours of practice and not the day before the examination. One of the things which people also do is the day before the examination, talk with all the friends and then say, have you covered this? Have you covered this? Oh, you have not read this. That's very important. This sort of the day before the examination, hyping yourself and becoming extremely anxious is not a good idea. After some time, the day before the examination is to close your books and then, take adequate rest, adequate food, and then, sort of engage in things which can give you actually relaxation. So these are some of the techniques, very brief techniques, It cannot be done in a day. You need to sort of address it over the time.
Thank you, ma'am. I think the last two questions we did at Raghavendra sir. There is a student who is asking whether it is worth trying for NEET again when once it has not been successful. And secondly, is it right to change the idea of which course to take at this particular point? Sir, over to you.
Yeah, but I think it's not a bad idea at all taking NEET again. Many students, in fact, succeed in the second attempt because now you have spent almost a year studying only this. According to one of the surveys, it says around 20 to 25% students who clear NEET are doing it for the second time. So therefore, it's a good idea to write the exam again. There is no harm in that at all. And at the same time, there are also other courses which would help you because pursue your interest in something like medicine. Maybe it can be a pharmacy course where there are more opportunities than actually in a medical course in terms of getting a seat. So there can be other forms of medicine as well. Okay, so please pursue your interest. Please make sure that you somehow get your focus on the main examination, but also prepare for other courses like this, including agriculture. Okay, somehow biology, if you're interested in, maybe the interest, somehow the interests in fact are overlapping. So veterinary science or agriculture may also be other options that you can look at.
Thank you, sir. Should every day be productive? Is it important to keep up self-motivation always, or are there other ways to go about it? Ma'am?
Can you hear me? Because my Zoom is not responding. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, because I'm frozen actually, and it says Zoom is not responding. Okay.
Okay.
No, not at all necessary. All of us need time off. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. So yeah, you see, when you say that you need a goal, the goal is generally a sort of a framework on which you can rely. It doesn't mean that every day of your life, 365 days in a year, you need to have that sort of a discipline. Why do we have Sundays? So that you do something different. Keeping motivation high is also to do things which are different. When you do things which are very, very different and then come back to whatever you have been doing, so give it a break and then come back, actually it increases the motivation. But you need to have a general framework of what you are going to do with yourself. I'm not even talking about competitive examination. What are you going to do as an adult? What are your dreams? What are the dreams which are possible? Is it based on your strengths and your limitations? If that is there, then we always know that how to go towards it, be there a competitive examination or no competitive examination. So that sort of a general framework in life is good enough, and that keeps us motivated. But you can also let your head down sometime on a regular basis to keep yourself highly motivated.
Thank you. There have been a few questions regarding whether there are resource materials on coping available anywhere and how they can access them. Sunil Patil sir has also asked, and a few students have also mentioned that they would need coping materials. Ma'am, any input on this?
Actually, there is a lot of, when you just, I'm sure all the students are aware of some of the books. See, I'm just trying to see Dr. C.R. Chandrasekhar's, some of his writings on coping would be quite helpful, especially what he has written for children and adolescents is a very good book. And that's what I can remember offhand. But if people just, type coping also, I'm sure onto the Google, I'm sure there will be. But each person has to understand what coping actually suits them. Okay, because not all coping strategies are for everybody. Generally we talk about emotional coping and behavioral coping. So some people do cope by doing things. Some people cope by emotions like either crying or, becoming anxious. So to understand what coping helps you, is what is very important. So Dr. C.R. Chandrasekhar's books are, I think, one resource from India I can remember. But if they need it, I can send it to Vijay, and then whoever has logged in, we can share it with them. I do not know whether Dr. Raghavendra has coping for students and that, because I train teachers and mental health professionals and counselors in becoming facilitators for adolescents and youth. Though I work with the adolescents, but I have not written anything for the adolescents, but for the teachers and mental health professionals. So probably Dr. Raghavendra can say.
I'm also looking for a book of that kind, which actually helps us scientifically tackle this problem. But I'll be very happy if I can. I have seen actually Professor Chandrasekhar's book, and also read one book called as Kishora Chitta or something, which helped actually answering a lot of questions that I had. That book is actually in the form of question and answers. Question asked by students and parents, and he has answered that in a book called as Kishora Chitta. So that actually helped me understand a lot of problems that my students face.
So I think we have overshot our time by 10 minutes. But there is one last question which I think may be important, ma'am. Is there time? Would it be okay if I do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ma'am, what they're saying is there any directive as to whether it is good to e-learning or is it to do?
Can you repeat?
Like basically whether e-learning is, ma'am, whether e-learning is a good idea, that is either going by webinars or live discussions on the internet is a good idea, or read and then understand?
First of all, I think as a method, it is quite good, because when there is a lacuna in your face-to-face learning, definitely it is one among the complementary methods of learning. Whether that alone would be suffice, I'm not sure about it, because you need to have the human touch, to be able to learn, because you not only learn the subject from a teacher, you learn so many other things from the teacher or the guru or whoever it is. So it is a good complementary method, but I think at the same time, if there is a direction in a webinar, there is no way where you can ask and then, sort of individually discuss with somebody. So there are some shortcomings, but there are also strengths. It's a good complementary method, I think, especially during a lockdown time. And I'm thankful that our technology is now advanced enough to have all these things. Yeah.
Sure, ma'am. Sir, any inputs on this, Raghavendra sir?
Yeah, especially as a person who is using this platform to help my students actually learn things, I found number one, this has only replaced a small part of our teaching cycle. The teaching cycle involves delivery of the inputs, and then second one is for the students to go back and then follow it up with maybe an assignment or a question and answer and the evaluation. So in this particular thing, this e-learning is only now helping that first part of the delivery part. Number one, it is quite effective, and in a webinar this is not possible, but in a regular classroom meeting that we do with the students, it's a two-way communication. Students can ask questions, we can clarify their doubts, we can be very specific and tell one of the students to basically answer a question. And we have done that very effectively in the last 2 months that we have adopted this method. And also, if you look at the big picture, for a country like India, scaling up quality education is possible perhaps because of this e-learning. And many big players have taken it up, including Tatas, who want to get into this field so that they can help the society reach out to people where otherwise a good teacher cannot physically go and teach. So therefore, there's a fantastic opportunity. I'm sure many of you will be able to take a course, MIT course, sitting in Bangalore with the help of e-learning platform. Okay, or an IIT, say Delhi, may actually sponsor a course which is entirely going to be e-learning. There'll be one batch of students who will do in their college, another can be a student from anywhere in India can opt for a course like this. So in that big picture, I think e-learning is a way to scale up quality education. So maybe a big thumbs up for that.
Thank you so much. We come to an end of a webinar on staying positive for competitive exams amid unprecedented COVID. I think it's been a very, very useful and a very interesting series for those participants who have been there. I would like to thank Professor Shrikala Bharat, who's been one of our panelists. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your very nice presentation as well as questions very patiently. I also would like to thank Raghavendra being here, and I think his advice would have helped a lot of students put a lot of things into perspective. I would like to thank the coordinators of the Dr. A. Jagdish, Dr. Mahesh Gowda, and Dr. I would like to thank Mr. Sir, who's organized this program for us in association with IPS, IAPP, and Tele. We thank all of you for all the participants and the audience here with us today. And I hope it has been a very useful session for all of you. So I hand over the mic to Vijay sir now. Thank you so much. Sir, I think you need to unmute.
Hello. I thank everyone, Dr. Preeti, for conducting this session very aptly. It was very informative, making sure that information and it was more of an interactive also, because a lot of questions were asked, and based on that, discussions happened. Professor Shikla Bharat, as usual, she's my teacher, and she's done wonderfully. And I'm sure the students will get benefit out of it. Dr. Raghavendra, we didn't know about you, sir. It was a pleasure having you. It was very informative. I'm sure the IPS KC in the future, through the VVS Sardar Patel, the contacts we had. As you know, we are conducting essay and debate competitions for the last 40 years almost with VVS Sardar Patel. So through them, I think we came to know about you, and you are very wealthy, wealthy in terms of information and knowledge. So it was wonderful having you, sir, and I'm sure all students got benefit out of it. I should thank my my colleagues Mahesh and Dr. Jagdish, to helping me to agreeing for us to conduct this session and to reach out public who are in crisis. We are trying through this Chale Arogya series to reach out to people who are in need. I must thank Mr. Ganeshan and Microlabs team for supporting us through this. And thank you everyone. There are a lot of questions. 120 participants participated, and it was a wonderful event. Thank you very much, one and all. With this, I say goodbye and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.